thanks for coming to this cozy event, the one of our Careers in AI events. This today with Jeff Lee and Linda Pantale. I'm Emily Bembenek. I'm the director of the Center for Applied AI and under the faculty directorship of Sundal Mullainathan. As you may know, the center does a lot of work in computational social science. We work on AI and machine learning to help humans make better decisions in a lot of different fields: healthcare, criminal justice, public policy, etc. So I'm excited today to have Jeff with us and Linda, both Booth alums, who are going to be having a conversation about Jeff's experiences and career. Just to give you a sense of who they are. Jeff is the head of PMO and Practice Leader for AI and Robotic Process Automation at ITSavvy. His responsibilities include all aspects of launching AI and RPA for the firm as well as their clients. So things like partnership management, sales training, go-to-market strategy, etc. And in this capacity, Jeff works with some of the leaders of the industry to bring AI to both big and medium organizations. Prior to his current role, he led client delivery and business development in China and the US at Information Resources Incorporated, a $1 billion big data analytics leader in the CPG and retail industry spaces. He was on the regional leadership team at Valspar Asia. He started his career as an ERP consultant and implemented SAP globally for a number of Fortune 500 clients after finishing his MBA at Booth. Linda is a recent graduate. I think she's going to be walking in a couple of weeks, so congratulations to Linda. She has been a member of the center during her time at Booth and a huge help to me and all of our teams here, a key element in successfully organizing, managing, and building awareness around a lot of our research initiatives, including one on economic precision epidemiology and another that is called the Computational Medicine Legal Accelerator. She has a background in higher education administration and strategy, just finished her MBA focusing on strategy again, entrepreneurship, and behavioral science. So I'm super delighted to hand it over to her, and she'll be interviewing Jeff today. Again, please feel free to jump in with questions. You can put them in the chat, you can raise your hand. Try to keep yourselves on mute if you're not speaking, and otherwise, let's hear what Linda and Jeff have to say.
Great. Thanks so much for that intro, Emily. And as mentioned, please, let's keep this chat available. Drop any questions along the way. Jeff, I'm really looking forward to this conversation, and I want to dig into your experience at ITSavvy, leading this AI division for the past year. But I'd really like to take a moment to talk a little bit about how you got here, where you are today. Can you share with us the milestones in your career journey between graduating from Booth and now?
Sure, definitely glad to be here, and just want to, share what I know about the AI space with everyone. In terms of my journey, before ITSavvy, I don't know whether you guys like TED Talks, right? I'm a big fan of TED Talks, and recently I watched one. It's like, squiggly careers versus ladder careers. I don't know whether anybody watched that one. So I think I would put me squarely in the squiggly one. So I wish I had a better planning, but it hasn't worked out that way. So, but I think, with the degree from Booth, there were a couple highlights that Emily talked about that I think is interesting, right? So after Booth, at Booth, I decided I'm not going to do consulting because I, started my career as a consultant. I was doing a lot of traveling. So I said, okay, now general management, entrepreneurship is my thing. So I ended up at Valspar. It's a $3 billion chemical and, paint company. I was in their consumer division. So if you go to Lowe's and you shop there, right, you'll see their brand. So I didn't really know what to expect, but the person who hired me, I didn't know at the time, but he was going to lead the Lean Six Sigma deployment for the division. And that initiative was launched by the then CEO. So it kind of was a nice gig once I joined, that program. I was able to make some things happen for the division, and when they needed somebody to, turn the situation around in Asia, because I was originally from China, I had the opportunity to go, and I enjoyed the work a lot, right? So they have facilities in 5 countries, 2,800 employees. And, I was able to build a lot of relationships and make Lean Six Sigma work in terms of the business objectives they're trying to achieve. I came back to the US and joined RI, and RI also wasn't, like a planning. I sort of stumbled upon the opportunity. I heard of RI before when I was at Kellogg's, so for those of you who have CPG experience, RI and Kellogg's basically are 2 biggest market measurement firms in that industry. And so I was doing client delivery at the beginning, and because that fit my background best. But I knew they were thinking about getting into China, and again, because of my background, I became the co-lead for that expansion. It was really hard work, not so much from the kind of the technology front. We were able to localize the technology and tailor it to the market, but doing sales in China was extremely difficult. Because what we're trying to do was a little bit new to the market, and so we didn't end up being successful at the end. Afterwards, I started working on the U.S. business again, and was able, was fortunate enough that the product we were trying to bring to China was also the fastest growing product here in the U.S. So I was able to work with a number of big retailers and bring a lot of revenue growth to the company. So, but they, I guess, they were bought by another PE firm at the end of 2018, and 2019 I got impacted. And and then after a few months, we all know, right? That's early 2020, and then COVID hit. So it was very fun, finding a job at that time. And so when I landed at ITSavvy, the PMO that I was asked to run is something that I know I can do really, really well. And then once they saw, okay, this guy can really do what we asked him to do, they were open to my wishes, which was to expand to AI, and they're seeing a lot of synergies with that. So that's I guess so far is a happy story.
That's great. That's some good background, and I think some things I heard in your story is this squiggly career and knowing when to pivot. And every leader I have talked to in AI, will say that we are we're flying the ship as we're building it. And so I think that skill of how do you manage a brand new technology is something that we're seeing in your career. That's great. So you are situated in an interesting role at ITSavvy because you work with lots of other AI vendors. So you have this sort of market vantage point. I would love to hear what you are seeing in the market as areas of growth and opportunity for companies that you work with.
Yeah, so we're working with a number of companies, because ITSavvy is what's called a value-added reseller, right? So we don't make stuff, we sell stuff. And when you sell stuff, you really need to work on this kind of what value are you adding, right? And I think for us, part of it is a selection. So like, what kind of solutions do we bring to our clients? And we didn't know at the beginning. We had a partner. They were Microsoft's AI Partner of the Year for 2019, right? So they were the first partner. We're like, well, with that kind of credentials, right? For us to get started, we felt really good, and also they they work with us for 2 years, and the two firms managed to get a large client to sign a AI framework agreement. Basically, it's saying, okay, we have some general agreements in terms of one, acknowledging that this particular firm has expertise in AI, and when it comes to specific projects, we would put them into teacher sizes, small, medium, large, that kind of thing, and what price point would look like and stuff like that, right? So we felt pretty good working with that partner. We spent a few months working with them and trying to educate our sales force, and we had one big win happens with the same large client, but is independent of the framework agreement they signed. But we really struggle with getting traction with other clients, right? So after a while, I was like, okay, I need to, think about something different. So I talked to a college friend of mine, and he said, yeah, we are a 17-year-old AI specialist. I was like, really? So talk to them, and so their approach is different from the first firm. The first firm, everything is custom, right? So they want to start by understanding a client's data, and then they can think about, okay, potentially what they can do. They have some use cases, but those use cases, probably is not exactly matching a particular client's industry and size, that kind of stuff, right? Because they're a global firm, they have, some use cases, but not a ton, right? Where this second firm, where my friend is at, right? They have supposedly like 1,000 AI models, and so pretty much every industry that you talk to, they have an offering that you can discuss with their clients, and it's very specific. Like for instance, within purchasing, they have some models looking at the contracts, your customers and stuff like that, right? To make sure you consolidate as much as you can using things like natural language processing. So as part of that discussion, they introduced us to yet a third firm. And that third firm is actually a startup, and they only have one product. And that product is something, one is AI based, but it's a oral reading assessment tool for K-5 kids, right? Now, when I saw that, and some of other people within ITSavvy saw that, we were like, okay, this is something different. Because if you think about kind of what ITSavvy has been doing, right? We historically has been selling hardware, servers and switches and stuff like that, tangible stuff. So for them to say, well, I need to talk to my client about understanding their data, right? And then from there, trying to find an AI angle was extremely difficult. But if you say, well, here's a like a software package, and here's what it does, and because of AI, why it is important, better than the current way. It's just a lot more sort of relatable, right? And as a result, we have putting a lot more firepower behind this very simple product. We can do email campaigns. We can have our a larger group of client executives, which is what we call our sales folks, to go and approach their clients and generate some conversation. So I would say those are the three approaches that I've seen so far, right? One is everything's custom, start with data. Another one is, okay, we have a pre-configured, pre-trained model for a very specific problem. If you can benefit from solving that problem, we can do it for you really quick, right? And the third approach is, okay, we have a product that's AI based, it's cutting edge, and you can use as mass scale. So those are the three that I've seen so far.
That's great. That's really helpful. Thank you. Sounds like that software revolution is very much where some of these innovation is happening. So you mentioned earlier that some of your work is in educating a sales force about AI products. And I think that role is very much the emphasis on education and how do you convey the value proposition and how do you talk about what AI can do for a business. What messages do you think are most powerful in demonstrating how AI-enabled products can provide values to the companies you work with? What's resonating right now?
I think it's, there are two, so if you think about it, there are two audiences, right? One is the salespeople. So we have to get them excited. So for them to get excited, they need to know, one, there's a healthy margin there, right? And second, they can do enough, they can understand this thing enough to feel comfortable talking to their clients about those solutions. And they need support because this is new to them, right? So if they if they can think of some questions or the client asks some questions, they want to know that they're not alone. So the support from the vendors will be extremely important. We have been working with the partners on kind of presentations that they can leverage, right? They can probably pick a slide or two from a deck and send to a potential customer to say, okay, here's what this is about, and you may have read about AI in online or wherever, but here's a very specific use case that you can look at. So that's one audience. The other audience, of course, is the companies, the clients themselves. I was on a call last time when somebody said, okay, I think somebody was working at Blue Cross Blue Shield, right? They wanted to help bring AI to their firm. They were having some difficulty. So what we have seen so far that resonate best is this approach of proof of value, right? So you in other words, you do a small scale study, and you can have some tangible results. The cost either is free in some cases or very low, right? So it's a low risk proposition, and so even though they may not have allocated budget for this particular area this year, they probably have some flexibility in their budget to do a small proof of concept. And the third piece that we found that is consistent with what I have seen before from my previous experience is if you can tie AI to a strategic initiative, right? So that's essentially how we won, that contract with this large client. So they want to build what they call a brewery of the future, right? So we're like, well, if you want to build a brewery of the future and you have no AI in it, that's probably not right, And there are a components in there, for instance, a lot of cameras, videos coming, and the alternative to AI, of course, is for somebody, an army of people, right, watching all the time, and then you have all the downfalls, if you will, with the human just watching those videos, and whereas you can train a computer vision AI model to help detect anomalies and sort of help be more efficient. So those are the three ways that I have seen that resonate most with the companies or clients.
Great. I love that brewery example. I think that's unique in that it's not something that immediately comes to my mind as an industry that could use AI. You work in IT, and I think when I think about the IT as a sector, that feels very much behind the scenes and like the plumbing or electricity of a business, highly important, but not necessarily what people see right away. What do you think people would be most surprised to learn about IT and the work ITSavvy is doing with AI?
So, so when we say I would say our history, right? So the contract holders or the direct clients that we have been working with historically they are in IT, right? They are so they are the ones who decides what software, what hardware to get. Whereas AI related services or products, even the oral assessment tool that I was talking about, right? The decisions are made by the business, in this particular case, the principals, right? And also the curriculum people, not necessarily by IT, even though, IT can say, well, here's, it's technology related, therefore they can help us make some introductions and stuff, but they don't necessarily sort of make those decisions, right? That's the biggest challenge we're facing right now in terms of selling your I'm going to say regular AI stuff to clients. However, what I want to explore next are the AI-enabled products that can help IT directly. One area that we touched on but haven't quite figured out is cybersecurity, right? So cybersecurity is all the rage these days, right? Everybody wants to be safe and all that stuff. And so one case study I've seen is those logs, right? So you have a ton of logs coming from different sort of cybersecurity either devices or systems, right? And kind of a similar situation. If somebody were to watch it manually, it's going to go drive them crazy. And especially when you have like a multiple systems all in cybersecurity, maybe each of them does something unique. And how do you sort of put all of that stuff together and still make sense? Individually, each individual components, they may have some of those functionalities, right? But if you have multiple and maybe multiple systems or multiple sites, and how do you put all that stuff together? I think that's probably one example within IT. I would say that I think AI should be able to play a role, but that's right now as a hypothesis.
Good. I hope you can test that hypothesis soon, hopefully successfully.
Yeah.
So this is a question that maybe we can build off what you just shared. When you think about the types of problems that you see in your work, and how do you think artificial intelligence can address that? And I mean, specifically, often we will hear, and I think Sendel actually talks about this a lot, of what types of problems can artificial intelligence solve? They're really good at solving prediction problems. So what types of problems do you see? So like you also just talked about information aggregation problems is maybe another area, but I'd love to explore the types of problems you're seeing.
Yeah, so I guess actually I was on a AI related webinar probably a couple of weeks ago, and I think they summarized it pretty nicely. I think what is commonly understood, right, are computer vision and natural language processing. Those two are, I guess it's commonly associated with AI, right? And predictive analytics, I guess, is another one. So, I will say probably those are the three general areas that AI can do really, really well, right? The question is, okay, for instance, computer vision, right? You can literally see it and I guess kind of touch it, kind of thing, right? How do you translate that into a business solution? I will say the partner, one of the partners that we work with, have shown us some case studies. For instance, medical imaging, right? So you have CT scans or what have you, all those imaging, and right now, of course, you need a specialist to look at those images, right? And I think they have a case study where essentially to train AI model on those images, and then sort of have the model help detect whether pulmonary disease or other kind of disease. We have not convinced a client, if you will, to sort of take that up with us yet. Again, we have seen use cases elsewhere, but I think somebody made a comment saying, well, the ability here, right, to process all those videos and images should present, quote unquote, endless possibilities, probably. But we have not, we're still trying to crack that nut ourselves.
Yeah, and do you think, from the leaders that you are working with, is there a hesitancy in the risk of using AI in that way, or is there something else? What do you think some of those potential barriers to embracing that might be?
My personal opinion is like we probably have not been able to make very compelling business reasons cases, right? So, like for instance, the hesitation, perhaps let's use medical imaging as an example, right? So you have pathologists looking at those images all the time, right, all day, and for us to say, well, okay, you can train AI model that can, do this for you, perhaps, hopefully more efficient, perhaps better. It's probably the same hesitation people would have with other innovations, right? Their worry is, okay, am I going to be replaced? That kind of stuff. I guess where in reality, probably, I think the value proposition that at least we have heard, right, is like, okay, no, it's not about replacing your job. It's about your ability to spend your time doing more sort of creative human kind of thing. So for instance, the oral assessment tool that I was talking about, right? So we compare that to the traditional way, which is I guess everybody probably can get a sense of how that stuff works in a traditional way, which is you would print out a passage, right? The teachers would print out copies of passages, and you would sit with the student in the back of the classroom one-on-one, and you would have the student read the passage to you, right? And you would mark on your piece of paper, and then afterwards you would grade it, right? And then you need to do that. Maybe you do one student, you take a break because there's something going on in the classroom, whatever, right? So the tool, if you think about it, it doesn't replace the teacher, right? What it doesn't do, it cannot, at least right now, the particular product we're looking at, it doesn't basically allow a student to interact with it and therefore just improve your reading efficiency. Right now, all it does is assessment, right? It just, say, okay, you're in grade 2 right now. I mean, are you reading a grade level, or you're one level above, or you're one level lower, that kind of thing, right? And then it's more kind of the measurement and the benefit of using AI model as opposed to somebody does it manually is consistency, right? And because a teacher may be distracted and whatever the case may be, whereas the model will not be, and it's more consistent, and the time that the teacher saved, they can use that time to really do what the teachers do best, which is to teach the students, right? My wife happens to be a college professor, and when she first told me that the worst part of her job is the grading, I was like, okay, is this just you? And I talked to some of her colleagues, and looks like that's a common thing for professors. So I suppose from that perspective, it's a great thing. So, but long story short, right? I think the struggle or the challenges we have maybe at this point is to, for the practitioners to understand both the technology as well as the, your intended audience enough to say, well, look, here's the value proposition. You don't need to be scared about it. That kind of thing. But as I said, we are, for me personally, it's really the beginning of the journey. We can certainly do better for sure.
That's great. Let us know when you find the grading robot to relieve all of our faculty. That's great. You mentioned this is the beginning of a journey for you in AI, and certainly culturally where we are. But in our earlier conversations, you shared that you had just really started working in AI in 2019 after a friend suggested that you learn more about the topic. What advice would you give for folks here who are interested in AI but may not know where to begin?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? The way I think about it, right? I would have never positioned myself as a data scientist, right? That's just not who I am. As a business school graduate, kind of where is your sweet spot, or what it is you need to know? I guess I would just share sort of my thinking, or at least my journey, right? Just as one point of reference. So the reason I agreed with that suggestion was because I worked for 10 years at a big data company, right? So and before then I was a ERP consultant. So even though I passionately hated programming, I really did. After a few years, I was like, I'm gonna kill myself if I keep doing this. So, which is why I went to Booth. But what I didn't realize probably more clearly at the time is that, okay, you don't want to do programming, that's fine, right? But knowing programming, knowing kind of the systems is a good thing. And maybe there is a middle ground. So I guess the middle ground that I see are probably two places. One is, I guess you can call it like a business development role, meaning, you're not in sales necessarily, but you are part of the sales team, right? And what you bring to the table is enough understanding of the technology, and hopefully really good understanding of the business issues, right? And kind of where you see the technology would add value, and in a process, making deals happen. I think that is certainly one area. The other area, if you get lucky, right, you become kind of like a business owner or practice leader. So it's kind of your business, right? And I mean, so I guess more of your MBA training would come into play. I said it before, the AI role that I have right now, essentially, I created for myself, right? And what's nice about it is, I get to make a lot of decisions, and hopefully not repeating some of the mistakes that I saw earlier in my career, not necessarily my own mistakes, but mistakes nevertheless, right? So for instance, I talked about, the challenge that I had in China in terms of gaining traction in the marketplace. I mean, the country, China, right? It's for those, I don't know again how many of you has done business in China, right? It's challenging, but that is not the only reason, I would say, right? So afterwards, I talked to my business executive sponsor, and I said, okay, what could have we done differently to give us a better shot at succeeding in China, right? And he said, well, so the way we did it was we had a couple consultants, right, who were not from the firm. They had very little understanding of our technology, and then and then we have folks on the ground. So what they did was they, got some business experts from the U.S. and go to China, right? And they have, this consultant essentially translating what the business experts were saying to the sales folks on the ground. And, and he said, well, that really didn't work well at all, right? So he said, if we have somebody who can do both, right? Who understand the language, understand our technology, and we can communicate to them seamlessly, and they can communicate to their clients seamlessly, we should have a much better chance of succeeding. So I took that lesson to heart, right? So essentially, at least right now, right, AI at ITSavvy is my show. If it is not successful, I have nobody else to blame but myself, which is a motivation for me to say, well, this first partner, it wasn't working, right? So I can't just throw up my hands saying, okay, it's all their fault. It doesn't matter because, it's my problem to figure out, which is why, I'm reaching out to I have reached out to other partners. I will continue to reach out to other partners, more partners, right? That I feel like would be a better fit for what we do within the realm of AI. So I guess, that's the kind of ways I would, I think would be a better fit for business school students as opposed to like a pure data scientist.
That's great. I think some of the things I'm hearing you say is, one, it's never too late to learn something new, and that this AI fluency is a really important skill. And maybe you don't need to know the back end, but being able to translate the business value and proposition is a highly sought after skill.
I think definitely is probably is the most valuable one, right? Because if you say, well, okay, there are a lot of people who probably like PhDs and what have you, right? Probably they're trained on AI. I think I would say probably most folks on this call probably would never be there, right? You're not the kind of person. Otherwise, you probably would not be on this call. So it's, those skills are valuable, but as far as business school students are concerned, that's probably not your sweet spot. I guess I should probably add that one thing that I did that helped my understanding a lot, and also adds credibility, is at the time Microsoft has they call it a professional programming AI, right? Is more kind of like a AI overview kind of thing. And I told you guys I hated programming with passion, but that program forced me to code in Python. I soldiered through it. I would say I didn't enjoy it, but what it did do is it let me have a really good understanding of when they say, oh, computer vision, why it works, or natural language processing, so there's an upside. I mean, if you have some technical background and you don't mind going through a program like that, right, it will add to your credibility. Microsoft in particular has changed their approach. So that program has discontinued right now, is more like a role-based training, which is some other firms are doing, but even for the role-based, right? I talk about business development, so maybe there's an AI business development role there, that people can look at.
Great, thank you. You spoke about this a little bit, but I'd love to ask it more directly. Which booth classes or experiences prepared you best to take on this new chapter in AI in your career?
Well, I guess I won't tell you guys how old I am, right? So when I was at Booth, there was no AI classes, there was no AI center. So I cannot comment on the current offering at the school right now. But I will say, ironically, probably I think it's still the last class I took at the school after I graduated. I mean, I don't know what the policy is right now, right? But at least when we graduated, we got 3 free classes, right? And so I took Professor Davis' business policy. I don't know how many people have taken that class. Yeah. So one comment he made was, well, you have learned a lot of stuff, right? So what you're gonna learn in this class, right? It doesn't mean what you learned in other classes are not useful. It's just a different angle. So for those of us who took the class, about journey, stage and all that stuff. To me, kind of when I try to figure out how I can really deliver growth for ITSavvy using AI, right? Some of the concepts and frameworks that he talked about is very helpful. So I will say probably that's what comes to mind at the moment.
That's great. Yeah, he's a wonderful professor, and it does not surprise me that the experience you call back on is one based in leadership and learning how to be nimble. And the last question before we open it up to Q&A, I'm seeing some exciting comments in the chat, so get ready for those questions. But I want to look forward now. We know that AI is changing constantly. Our world is changing constantly. But from your vantage point, what skills, competencies, and experiences do you think will be most demand in the AI job market in the next 10 years?
Yeah, so we've sort of touched on this. I don't claim to have a crystal ball, right? So I don't know, but I think it's probably it differs by the role that you end up playing, right? So if you are like a pure technologist, right? So you probably need to think about innovation. Is saying what's the next person, for instance, or that kind of stuff, right? And technology is important, and also somebody comments on yet another AI conference I was on, right? A very well-known investor in China. He said, well, I believe in a few fields like autonomous driving, healthcare. What was the third field he talked about? He feels like it's gonna have a lot of potential for AI, that kind of thing, right? But I still believe for like a both grad, our sweet spot is probably sitting between technology and business, and whether that means business development, or whether that means sort of you are creating a line of business for AI. I think that's probably where we would potentially shine.
That's great. Thank you. And I'd like to open it up to some questions. So if you prefer, you can drop a question in the chat, and I can ask it, or just raise your hand and you can unmute and ask it yourself.
Mash, I saw your comment in the chat. Would you like to kind of maybe present that as a comment that we can discuss more? I think that your perspective on how the data scientists do not generate the same kind of value as we've been talking about here might be interesting to dive into a little more.
Sure. It's well, it is a perspective. They don't want to open up too much, since I don't want to put certain companies out in the public. But the general experience is this. I mean, when you look at AI in practice, practical AI and so on, and I do, as somebody who's been working in this space long before the words data science was ever coined, and I come from the corporate strategy world where I was the data guy, and I was building regression models for staffing functions and operations functions back in the aught years, and so on. And so there is value, but things move very, very quickly when you can't keep a good game down for long. You build, when it comes to AI, we can indeed we have focus on the capabilities, And there are ways that IT can develop what they call CI/CD, continuous improvement, continuous development, CI/CD pipelines that enable those rich data-driven capabilities and that enable automation, that enable you to do things such as legal law firms. You can hire a lawyer, an attorney to read a contract, and they'll read 3 contracts per hour and charge the usual rate, which would be somewhere around $500. Or you could automate it. And this is basic natural language processing. You can have it look for certain clauses, party, counterparty, interest rate in a financial contract, and so on, and have it recommend entirely different changes and so on. And then when you test the machine generated recommendations compared to what a human attorney does, usually you're going to hit about 90% of the mark through automation. Now here's the clincher. Lawyer reads 3 documents an hour, $500 an hour, or tens of thousands of documents in a few hours with 90% accuracy. And this isn't even the most sophisticated deep learning. This is just still traditional machine learning that's being used. That kind of capability is what you need to focus on. So it is really strategy. It is really the domain experts who know and work with the technology folks to enable those capabilities, those pipeline solutions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the cloud providers are happy to enable it. If you look at all of the offerings from AWS, Google, really, I mean, they are, every time there's a major conference, the AWS conference around December is when you hear they take the veils off of their new services and innovations. Google just had their I/O conference and they revealed so much more. And it's always a competition. And Microsoft, not to be outdone, because they have every company has Microsoft Azure, pretty much, just because they're already in every company, because everybody uses Office 365. So they're all competing and they're all making these things available at low code, no code frameworks, so that the subject matter experts, the folks working in finance, in marketing, in product development, in human resources, they all can develop AI solutions. And those are the subject matter experts that the technology functions or the centers of excellence for AI, they need to help enable those subject matter experts, those functional groups, to be able to build those new AI capabilities and move as fast as you can, because market competition doesn't hold still. Any little competitive advantage meaningfully can translate into significant market growth, market advantage, et cetera. You get the idea.
Yeah, thank you. That was great. I think some things that I'm weaving together from this conversation is that a huge opportunity to really get AI, into the foundation of our businesses is to make it the value and the tools accessible to those different levels of leadership, so that artificial intelligence isn't the domain or the tool that is only in your data science department or only within technology, but it really is a tool accessible to marketing and finance and strategy. Which just sounds like very much, Jeff, is the position that you are in.
Yep. Yeah, because you think about it, right? Tools. I mean, there can be many tools out there. So and it's important to innovate and stuff like that, right? But where we're sort of talking about is kind of application, and in order for people to be excited about applying, one, they need to understand, again, another TED Talk, if you guys are familiar with it, right? What is the why, right? So you need to answer that question. If you answer that question, then people are interested in how and what. So the why, of course, at least the way I see it is always the business value, right? What is the business value?
Does anyone else want to jump into the conversation? Either a comment or a question or a relevant experience you wanted to bring up?
Hi, this is Robert Lemon. I guess I'll just throw out a basic question to you. Because Jeff, you mentioned some of the job titles out there in AI, like business development and practice leader. Can you name some other potential job titles to look at that would be in this area, applicable to a Booth grad?
That's a good point. I guess there's an assumption here, right? The assumption is you have both some level of AI as well as a business, right? That's an assumption, right? So with that assumption, I think solution architect could be another one. I know was the gentleman's name last time. Product management could be, depending on where you are. I guess if a company is sort of, you can say, either progressive enough or cutting edge enough, right? They may have an AI COE. I mean, if they have that kind of setting, I guess another title that came to mind is maybe like a more AI business partner, so to speak, right? It's kind of your, not your traditional IT business partner. Is like, okay, it's the AI business partner, which again is kind of the interface between, AI and the business. But I mean, I guess, if you have the right experience and the right opportunity, right, a practice leader basically would become like a business owner, right? Or you manage to, if you're really lucky, you can run an AI company, I guess.
There's something interesting, and I think that's a great question that you asked. Like, if you were looking for these types of jobs, what would they be called? But Jeff, you had a unique experience in that you sort of wrote your own job description. Is that true? So it sounds like there are ways you can forge us, and if AI is interesting or important or an area in which you want to develop some expertise. Sounds like that's also ample opportunity to perhaps craft your own or bring it into whatever function you currently have.
Yeah, it's I think it's I consider myself fortunate, right, to be able to do it here. But I will say, throughout my career, and you guys have heard about a few instances where I really aligned myself to where the company wants to go, right? So that may be called strategic initiatives or whatever. And I should add on that point, one of the reasons why I can do what I'm doing here is because I have a very big supporter, not only in my direct supervisor, but also in the president of the company, so he joined the company about, I would say at this point, about 6 months ago. It's very interesting that in his first town hall discussion, he kind of talk about, the experience economy, and that's led by data analytics, AI, machine learning, and stuff like that, right? So even though ITSavvy as a company, traditionally, that's not the space we play, but he sees the value. And as a result, he becomes a pretty big supporter. So I think it's, I will say another area I would say, right? It's kind of power and influence. I think I took another class at Booth. I'm sure everybody probably have a intuitive understanding of power and influence, right? But how do you sort of really put that into practice and sort of use that knowledge to make things happen for you personally as well as for the company? And again, I think for me, the simplest way that you can potentially look at that is look at what is the strategic directions a company is trying to go, and how can you tie your expertise to that. Typically, that's probably a pretty good way of I guess grow professionally.
We might have time for one more question if anyone wants to jump in before I close it out. Your last chance, don't miss out. Okay, I think then everyone is sated for now. I wanted to also share these in the chat. I'm going to put this link. These are some case studies that we at the center made. They're similar to what Sandal teaches in his class. So they're just kind of some examples of AI decisions in companies, and they can kind of maybe help you think about different options for where you might see yourself landing. And I know I think there's only 3 here right now. We have a 4th one that probably be up next week. So just keep an eye on that too, if you're interested. So thank you everyone so much for coming. Jeff, it was so wonderful to hear about your experience and your perspective. I loved the squiggly career line that you told us about. And I think my own is a little squiggly as well. So from one squiggler to another, thank you so much. And Linda, wonderful. You are always so fantastic. I've loved having you at the center. Congratulations on your MBA. I hope everyone has a wonderful summer. There's another event that we're not hosting, but our sister center at the Center for Data and Computing is hosting in a couple of weeks, which you can find on our website. That's on more specific use of AI in medicine. It's going to be great. And otherwise, have a wonderful summer, and we will see you in the fall.
All right. Thank you, guys.